So the question for today is, what do you do when you're not dealing with right triangles? You're dealing with non-right triangles. Well, we do have a solution for you. You can use what's called the Law of Cosine, and we're going to talk about the Law of Sine in the next section. Yes, there is a law of tangent, but we're not going to cover that. And normally what we would do in class is, there's some years where I would derive this formula. I am not going to do that right now. I'm just going to give you the formula for the sake of the video. So let's go over the formula. The formula works like this. It's going to be a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2 times bc times the cosine of angle A. Or it's b squared equals a squared plus c squared minus 2ac times the cosine of b. Or it's c squared equals a squared plus b squared, that should look familiar to you, minus 2ab times the cosine of c. In a sense, it's sort of like the Pythagorean theorem with kind of a little added on portion here that's a correction for the fact that it's not a right angle. So when I look at these things, I'm looking at the pattern. Don't necessarily memorize the letters, because if I give you a triangle that has the letters D, E, and F, like this, D, E, F, you're going to be messed up. So if you notice, if it's side A here, it's always going to be angle A here, side B, angle B. These are always going to be the other sides, that's not side A, and that's always going to match up with this right here. So the A and the C is always going to match up with the 2AC. A and the B here is going to match up with the 2AB. Okay, and if you notice, what happens when angle C in this particular one is a right angle, well, the cosine of 90, you're going to find out the cosine of 90 is actually equal to 0. So that means that this entire portion right here would get canceled out because it's all multiplied by 0. And you're just going to be left with the Pythagorean theorem. Okay, when to use the law of cosine. All right, so we use the law of cosine when we are given side, 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 when given side, 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 or side included angle side. Okay, and what you're going to look for here is third side. I think it'll make more sense when we actually try a problem here. So let's do that. Let's try this first problem here. And if you notice, we're given a side, an angle, and a side. So that tells me I should use the law of cosine. We're looking for the side that's opposite the angle. Here's the A and here's the A. It tells me that if I'm trying to choose between the original 3 formulas that I gave you, that this is the one I'm going to be using because it has a side A and an angle A in it. Okay, so it's going to be A squared equals B squared plus C squared minus 2BC times the cosine of angle A. Let's plug stuff in. So it's going to be A squared equals 5 squared plus 7 squared minus 2 times 5 times 7 times the cosine of 39. Now, the first thing you need to know is order of operation wise, this whole piece belongs together. what kids sometimes, students sometimes mess up is they try to group this whole piece together and then multiply it by the cosine of 39. Remember, order of operations tells us that what's underlined in the green there is grouped together. And then the one thing you should always remember to do is to make sure that you remember that this is a squared and we're trying to find a. So whenever I multiply or whenever I enter in my calculator to get that, I'm going to have to take the square root of it in the end. And so you're going to end up with 4.43 as your answer. So make sure you can do that. Sometimes the hardest part of these problems is actually just entering it properly into your calculators. Okay, so same type of problem for this one, except now the letters are not A, B, and C. Hopefully you can see that it's going to be s squared equals, and then it's going to be 15.78 squared, some ugly numbers here, plus 2.65 squared minus 2 times the 15.78 times the 2.65 times the cosine of 127 degrees. Okay, and what you're going to get when you solve for s, you should get, and again, check this on your calculators because practicing that will be really helpful. You should get 17.5. And then what I want you to do next is I want you to say that, okay, this is 17.5. Let's pretend that we don't know that this is 127. And let's pretend we're trying to find that angle that's 127. Well, you would use the same thing except this would be here, and instead of 127, you would have angle S right there. And then it just becomes a matter of solving this thing properly. So what I'm going to have to do here is keep in mind that, you know, order of operation wise, I need to bring this over to the left side, bring this over to the left side, and then I'm going to be left with this whole thing. And then to get rid of this whole portion here, I need to divide both sides by -2 times this times this. Okay? And then what do I need to do here when I'm left with the cosine of s? Well, I'm going to need to, when I'm left with the cosine of something, of s is equal to something, I'm going to have to do the inverse cosine at the very end. Inverse cosine. Okay, so go ahead and try that. You're going to take 17.5 squared, subtract 15.78 squared, subtract 2.65 squared, divide that answer, entire thing, by this right here, -2 times 15.78 times 2.65, and then take the inverse cosine of the entire amount. You should get S, you should get something close to 127. I think you actually get like 126.9 or something like that because of rounding that we did on the first part. Okay, so obviously it's much harder to find the angle measure, but really it's just a matter of doing order of operation correctly and entering things into your calculator correctly to find the right answers. Okay, I'm going to stop here and let you go ahead and try some problems on your own.